Art of Action Figures, taking a look at the Hasbro Marvel Legends Psylocke vs. Thanos 2-pack from their Marvel Gamerverse line, or if you're not bound by licensor restrictions, Marvel vs. Capcom. Now, I don't review a ton of Marvel on my channel, because honestly I just don't collect them very much. My interest in Marvel stems pretty much entirely from video games. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 and 3, and Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2, if anybody remembers those. So this Hasbro Gamerverse line, as well as the new Gamerverse line coming from SH Figuarts, have me pretty squarely in their sights. I was lucky to pick this up at one of my local Targets. People have been asking for an updated version of Psylocke in this outfit for years, especially since they updated the female body's articulation. They know this is a high demand figure, and they know that the existing options are frankly not very good. I don't think the Mafex is a very good figure either. Mafex, with their female figures, just tends to make them very soft and scrawny looking for some reason. I'm curious to see if SH Figuarts is going to throw their hats in the ring. In case they don't, or in the meantime, we have the Marvel Legends Psylocke, which I think actually looks pretty great. And she comes with this giant brick of a Thanos accessory that I couldn't care less about. And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at the packaging. On the front of the box, we've got your brand logos: Hasbro, Marvel Legends, Marvel Gamerverse. Warning: choking hazard, small parts, not for children under 3 years, but apparently safe for ages 4 and up. Who is buying this for a 4-year-old? Let me know if you are. Psylocke versus Thanos, each printed in a very cool retro arcade sort of font, stylized to match the aesthetics of each character. We have a similar retro arcade galaxy background surrounding this gigantic window showing off both figures and mostly Psylocke's accessories. I guess Thanos has just a couple hidden down here, but that's the front. On the top, we just have Marvel Gamerverse. On the bottom, nothing too interesting, except you do have your UPC, which theoretically you can use to check where this figure is in stock, but in practice does not work at all. I tried Pop Finder, and it said the Target that I got this at had 0 in stock, so that was a lie. The left side of the box is all about Thanos, while the right side is all about Psylocke. And finally, around the back, we have Psylocke in a very cool pose, and Thanos in the health bars across the top. Psylocke, Wolverine, War Machine versus Thanos, Silver Samurai, and Omega Red, which are 4 of the other characters that are releasing in Gamerverse 2-packs. I am planning to get the Wolverine Silver Samurai set, as well as the Captain America and Venom set. Not in for the War Machine and Omega Red, or Juggernaut, or Shumagorath, but I definitely want kind of the primary X-Men. The blue Venom is speaking to me, even though I do think he needs some more symbiote accessories. That's the packaging. Let's go ahead and unwrap it now. And oh, hey, I didn't see you there, trusty hobby knife. If you're 4 years old, please find an adult. Never handle sharp objects on your own without an adult or an adult brain. Slice the tape, slide the blade under the flap, push the dull edge toward the back of the box, and slide that open. These new boxes from Hasbro actually have pretty nice little thumb tabs here, but I still don't trust them, so I'm going to use the old reliable technique here. And close hobby knife. Thank you very much. Alright, and here's our big old tray. Before we dig into that, we also have this really cool, training stage background. Arena or stage backgrounds are almost mandatory with fighting game figures. I don't really use them myself, but this one looks pretty cool. I like that it's just kind of more abstract. Oh, hiding behind the tray is the all-important. And in the tray, we can see why there weren't a whole lot of Thanos accessories visible through the window, because there is one, and it's his snapping gauntlet hand here, and that's it. Meanwhile, it seems like all the love went to Psylocke, which I think was the right move. 2 interchangeable heads, a neutral face with neutral hair, and an angry gritting teeth face with windswept hair. She comes with a C-grip right hand and a fist on the left hand, but also includes a pair of swappable ninja hands, as well as an open left hand. I would have liked one more right hand option, just because I don't really understand why they gave her a C-grip hand and no sword. She has her psionic knife, which looks sick. She also has these really cool, like, slashy psychic power effects, as well as the all-important butterfly mask. The only thing I think you're missing is a katana or two, but I think I can probably dig one up from somewhere. Looking at the accessories, probably a good time to discuss the price and form factor of this release. Thanos, you could argue he's maybe a deluxe figure if he was released on his own, and Psylocke here comes with enough accessories that I think she would count as a deluxe figure as well. Retails for $60, so you could split that up $30 a piece. I think if these were individual deluxe figures, they'd probably go for $35, and to be quite honest, I would just prefer the option to buy Psylocke for $35. But who knows, maybe we'll find a use for this guy at some point. Now let's go ahead and crackle them out. It's been a while since I've had a Legends figure in hand. I think it's going to take a little getting used to. And I guess you'll get kind of a fresh perspective on this super articulated female body, because I have not had one of these figures before either. So I think it looks really nice. Extract the big boy. Feeling quite stiff, which I think you can probably gather just by looking at him. He doesn't look like he moves a whole lot. I don't know what is going on with that hinge, but it is not cooperating, going backwards. All right, let's go ahead and take these slashies. These are so cool. I think this looks great. I don't know, are they supposed to come apart, or are these two layers stuck together? I think they're just two layers either glued together or molded together. It's hard to say, but they're definitely not coming apart, so I don't want to force that. Although you maybe could, if you want to double your slash accessories, you could maybe get away with that. They are slightly different sculpts as well, which is pretty cool. They didn't need to do that. I think they could have gotten away with the same thing. The psionic knife blade, the butterfly mask, which I think is really cool, and I kind of think a big miss for Mafex not including this with theirs. Interesting way to attach this. It seems like it's meant to go only on this face. Speaking of, here's her angry battling face. I love Psylocke's hair. The black with purple highlights I think looks great. Definitely in the running for best comic book hair. I wonder who else makes that list. A little bit of tape around the hands. Alright, and then her alternate hands, she has the pair of ninja hands. The open left hand. Would have liked one more righty. And finally, oh boy, that is a mess. I don't know what happened on my Infinity Gauntlet, but it seems like the metallic green or something has gone awry here and just smudged all over the whole hand. That's not cool. Oh well. Let's just do a very quick glance at Thanos, and then we'll focus on Psylocke for the main course of this review. Here you can see them side by side just to get a sense for the size of him. Typical for a Marvel Legends, we've got some mismatch finish going on between the different plastic materials, like the arms, the torso, the boots, gauntlets versus like this thing and this overlay, and his crown. The stripe down his torso is orange paint over blue plastic, and the blue is poking through quite a bit. On his belt, it's orange plastic with blue paint, and those don't entirely match. And then, of course, I've got the Infinity Gauntlet with whatever stone this is, somebody can probably tell me, spilling out all over the back of his glove. So that kind of stinks. Let's swap it out. That's a pretty easy switch, and there we go. That's what that looks like. All right, now let's just do a quick run over his articulation, get our X and Y axes going here. The head is on a dumbbell joint. Actually, I was surprised. It looks up pretty well for a Hasbro dumbbell joint, about that much. Doesn't look down at all. That's the trade-off, I guess. Tilt and swivel. Everything in between works pretty well. No butterfly joints. That came out surprisingly easy. Was this a Build-A-Figure at some point? I think those molds have a tendency to pop apart a little easier. But just a hinge and swivel joint. The hinge goes up, as you saw, but if you push it too much, it can pop out. It goes up a little bit past 90, though. Swivels basically until you run into this, which is pretty soft. I think you can raise his arm about like that. Bear in mind, it's probably going to freeze in that position. You'll have to heat it up to get it to return to kind of relaxed. But yeah, you can kind of get the swivel all the way around. It's got a big bicep with a big bicep swivel. Single joint swivel hinge elbows that bend, 45 degrees at most. They also swivel. Swivel and a horizontal hinge on both wrists, all sets of hands. And they go around about that much. That works pretty well. The gauntlets cut at a bit of an angle, so you get a little bit more range going down. And torso articulation is the giant rectangle ab crunch. Personally, this is one of the reasons I don't collect very many Legends. I just do not like the way this joint looks. There's not a straight line in the human anatomy. Don't put a big rectangle front and center on all of your figures. It is clicky and doesn't go back very much at all. In fact, it's kind of resisting me. So it goes back maybe 10 degrees. It does go forward one click, maybe 30, 40 degrees. Swivel at the waist flexes his skirt piece, but works okay, and the skirt kind of hides the fact that now his torso is just straight up overhanging his crotch, which is weird. Legs kick forward pretty well, actually, a little less than 90, but he's a big guy with a big skirt and big thighs, so that's all right. They do not kick back because he's got a generous butt back here, and for some reason people only complain about that if it's SH Figuarts. Finally, kicks out to the side, past 45 in both directions, which is actually pretty surprisingly good. He doesn't have pins in the knees, which is another reason I don't buy very many Legends. I do not like seeing the visible pins. I think they have no place in modern action figures, so thankfully he doesn't have them. The knee does get pretty broken up when you bend it, but it gets pretty decent range past 90 degrees, so not bad there. No swivel at the boot. Why? Couldn't tell you. There's literally a cut right here. Just make it a cylinder, not a keyed peg, but they made it a keyed peg. I'm guessing that has something to do with like assembly error rates. Like if it's a cylinder, you're going to end up with too many Thanoses with 2 left boots or 2 right boots. Who knows? Thigh swivel, I forgot to mention. It's robust and works very nicely. Ankle is on a hinge. It goes down 45 or more. Goes up 30 or so. Ankle rocker. Can't put his foot flat on the floor when his leg's out to the side because he doesn't have a boot swivel. People seem confused when I make this comment, but you need some kind of ankle, calf, or boot swivel in order for the ankle pivot to not be at a weird steep angle like this. You want the bottom of the foot to be like this when you pivot the ankle, and to do that, you need to be able to rotate the boot so that this ends up here, but you can't do that and have the knee pointing this way at the same time, which makes posing the figure in a wide stance a little bit difficult. Articulation is fair for a big chunky guy, an old figure, all that kind of stuff, but we're not here for Thanos. Let's go ahead and... For your size comparisons, here are Psylocke and Thanos out of the packaging. And here's Psylocke next to a couple of the Marvel comic figures that I still have. It's the very, very underrated Ironheart figure, and we have Gamerverse War Machine at home. War Machine, so you can see, just about the same height as Ironheart, a little bit shorter than War Machine. Sticking with Hasbro, we have some bad ladies. It's also very underrated Mystique from the Fox X-Men movies, and slightly smaller scale, it's the Star Wars Black Series Asajj Ventress from the Clone Wars. Stepping into the Gamerverse now, it's the Jada Toys M. Bison and Jada Toys Cammy, the SH Figuarts Vega and SH Figuarts Chun-Li, the Mafex Tiger Stripe Wolverine, and the Mafex 185 Comic Spider-Man. More underrated figures, probably one of the most underrated figures I own, the Mafex Comic Magneto, and the Mafex Storm, which is a good figure, but kind of like the Mafex Psylocke, it's just way too scrawny to work for a Marvel vs. Capcom Storm. And for your extended Gamerverse, it's the D-Arts Mewtwo, and just to bring things back into my wheelhouse a little bit, the SH Figuarts World Tour Warrior Awakening Super Saiyan Goku. Now, bringing Psylocke in for some close-up details, I think this figure looks outstanding for the most part. I am really pleased with the faces. I didn't think I was going to like them as much as I do. I really like the way that they did her hair. I thought it was molded in black plastic with purple highlights painted on, but if you look at the underside, it's actually purple, and I doubt they would go in and paint the inside of her hair purple. So upon close inspection, I actually think this is molded in purple and given some black wash to kind of fill in the crevices, which is also a good way to do it. I think it looks good as a result, and the underside of her hair being purple doesn't really stand out. I mean, even if I turn the lights up quite a bit, I think it blends really well. It doesn't stand out because there's just kind of a natural shadow there. The faces I like a lot more than I thought I was going to. Based on the promo images, I think this expression is awesome. And I like the sculpt of the hair. I like this head sculpt a lot too, but as you can see, looks like a different person. Doesn't match skin tone at all. And while it does fit on the neck peg, when I took it off, the neck peg came with it, so I don't want to do that again. But you can imagine it looks something like this. And you'd have to do something about matching the skin tone, which I am not skilled enough to do. I think the sculpt is pretty solid. There are just a couple of points where I think the articulation causes it to break down, like at the butterfly joints, but I'm definitely okay sacrificing a little bit there for the added range that you get. I really like being able to move shoulders like shoulders, and someday I would love for Hasbro to adopt something a little bit more akin to what Mafex does, which this is a terrible example. Why did I pick this? Where you can move the butterfly all around. But yeah, it is a pretty sharp cut into the torso there. I like the way that the Black Series Ahsoka actually works. She has a very similar like tank top to this, and they just made this whole shoulder section the butterfly joint, and I think that's awesome. So if they could do something like that in the future for character designs like this, that'd be pretty cool. I think the sculpt of her shoulders is nice. It has a strong silhouette. You can see there's like some straighter edges here, which is really cool. It's not just like a sphere, and that gives her a little bit more muscle definition. Her arms are molded in blue plastic. The skin tone is painted within the bands on the upper bicep. And she could use maybe a little bit more bicep shape. This is pretty cylindrical, but the paint matches pretty close here. There's a couple places on this figure where they've matched the painted skin tone over blue to the molded skin tone. The upper biceps is probably the best example of it. The worst example of it is probably these little sections of her torso and her hips. Got a little bit of like bubbling going on the lower thigh piece. They've also done it on each of the hands for her like middle hand gloves, and it's a little bit rough. The pink for her belt is painted over her blue torso leotard piece, and it's pretty clean. The black X logo is good. Around the back, it's still pretty clean. A little bit missing the line here and there. The one place where they have painted blue over her skin tone is the upper thighs, and it's really good on this side. This side is also really clean, except one little spot in the front where you can see there's just a little misalignment. One issue I do have with this figure is some pretty harsh seam lines, like one right on the front of her right leg. There's also one on the front of her left leg, but you can see it's much less prominent than the one on the right. Some little nub marks at the back of her ankles, which is not a bad place for it if you've got to have one. Similar at the elbows. But I think the worst offender is the seam down the side of her waist. There's also one at the side of her torso, but her arms cover that one up most of the time. Top of her shoulder is also a little rough. Painting the skin tone over blue, it's going to be hard to hide that seam, and it's not very hidden, so that's kind of unfortunate. Otherwise, I think the sculpt is a good fit for like the sprites from Marvel vs. Capcom, more so than the character art. That's also true of the Thanos and Venom figures, at the very least, maybe others from Marvel Legends, which is interesting because if you look at the SHF Cyclops, it kind of seems like they're going for more the Bengus, like color pencil looking illustrations. So there might be room for both in somebody's collection as a result of that. There are a couple of places where it starts to look a little comical, which it is a comic, so I guess that's appropriate. But like from the front, it looks pretty cohesive, but from the side, it gets kind of all sorts of a little weird looking to me. Her thighs are so thick here. They like stick out past her torso, and like just how unbelievably skinny her waist is here. The way the top of her butt kind of pinches in where the torso meets, that's a little bit odd. So I think they've probably prioritized the front-facing and back-facing views, when otherwise I think the best thing for some of this weirdness is kind of getting her into action poses where the legs and the waist don't appear to be quite so disconnected from the rest of her body. Zooming in, you can see the bands are both sculpted and painted on, which is cool. That's true for the arm bands as well. Just a few indications that it's a costume and not body paint. A couple little stretches down the side of her chest and here at the waist, at the top of her legs, which is not a bad place for it. Going to be posing her legs quite a lot. Going over Psylocke's articulation now. Let's get our X and Y axes going again. Her head is on a dumbbell joint, and I think the last figure I handled that had a joint like this was one of the Spider-Men, maybe Renew Your Vows, and I don't remember it moving this much in the neck. It seems like they've made the connection a little bit more shallow in here, so it actually does get a little bit of movement on that lower ball, which is pretty cool. Although with Psylocke and the way they sculpted her hair, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference. With the neutral hair, she can look up like 5 degrees maybe, not a whole lot, but she can look down pretty well. 45 degrees down. Tilt is pretty good, at least 30 degrees there. Swivels left and right, and then no real restrictions in any direction other than the hair in the back. I think would be nice if they had a neck joint to also kind of help, or maybe just like a little bit more flexible, or even a joint in the hair. This is pretty stiff, thick hair. So at the shoulders, she has a hinge swivel joint going into a butterfly joint that hinges forward and backward, and it looks like it gets pretty good range. Let's see if they've cut it enough at the front to bring her hands together. Almost. I think if she had a weapon or something to hold, a sword to hold with 2 hands, if she had 2 sword-holding hands, I think she could hold it with both hands, no problem. And then they actually go back a lot, like way more than forward, so that's pretty cool. So yeah, pretty decent range. It does get a little bit gappy if you go all the way back, but it's nice there's no longer that like weird extended peg joint that blocks part of the butterfly joint's range. I prefer it that way, even though you get a little bit of a gap. Her bicep swivel is really nicely hidden at the top of her armband. Double hinged elbow gets like 180 degrees range almost, which is really good. That's impressive. Something I don't like, however, is the way Hasbro makes wrists a hinge with a fixed direction that's built into every hand. I really prefer the way imports do it, where there's a ball hinge in the wrist and every hand just has a socket for the ball joint. For her C-grip hand, you get a vertical hinge, and it gets a little bit more range if you like pull the hand out and then use it. It's a little bit hard to use it if you've pushed it all the way in, but it's decent. This fist on her left hand is a horizontal hinge. Same for the open palm hand. And then her 2 ninja pose hands are vertical hinges. But again, it would be really nice if you could just move the wrist in any direction like a wrist. For her torso articulation, she has a diaphragm cut with a single ball joint and an inverted ab crunch near the waist. I think this looks a little bit better than the standard ab crunch, but bringing out Jada Toys' Cammy for some assistance here, it's a little bit baffling why they don't just do it like this with another cut and a ball joint at the waist. We'll take a look at how these work relative to each other. The upper joint, it doesn't get a ton of forward range. I think the forward-backward range is mostly going to come from your lower ab crunch. This just adds maybe 5 degrees in either direction. Similar for tilt, which kind of stinks because this is the only place you're going to get tilt. You won't get it from ab crunch at all. And then rotation, I mean, it can rotate all the way around, but eventually stops looking like a torso. Then combining the ab crunch with the diaphragm joint past 45 degrees, that's really nice. And going forward, and again past 45 degrees forward, also very good. But then nothing else to show you as far as the tilt goes, because like I said, this ab crunch joint can't tilt. Let's bring Cammy back for a comparison. I think this setup is pretty simple. It's just a diaphragm cut with a single ball joint and then a waist cut with a single ball joint. The waist is a soft PVC, and she also has some strategic like notches cut around where the ball joints go so that it increases the range slightly. Let's see how it compares. I'm going to try to hold her waist still while I do this, just to remind you. You could see easily as much range, if not slightly more, than Psylocke going back. Easily as much range or slightly more going forward. And then the biggest difference is going to be in side-to-side tilt, because Cammy has a second ball joint that also lets her tilt, and in fact that's where the majority of the tilt comes from. And you can see she tilts past 45 degrees left to right, whereas Psylocke only like 10 degrees on that top joint. And then of course you also get the benefit of swivel at the waist. The hip joints are just a straight ball peg. No soft plastic for the waist, and no drop down hinge or anything, so she kicks up just about 90 degrees. Maybe a little bit less, but that's about as good as you could expect. With some softer materials at the waist joint, you can get that to flex and kick up a little bit past 90 degrees. Kicking back, there's a little too much baked goods in the way, so no luck there. Again, no soft material at the waist. You'll also want to be careful not to push your leg into the waist, because I just scuffed that one there trying to do that. Cammy, once again, to demonstrate the virtues of the soft PVC waist. I also happen to think the way they sculpted the top of the leg here is just more cohesive looking. As far as kicking out to the side, not quite complete split, so a little less than 90 degrees each way. Not entirely sure why. Here you can see, again, similar sculpt, similar setup, and no issue with kicking 180 degree split. And something else of note with Cammy is she also can bring her leg in past vertical. So here's like where the leg would kind of rest naturally up and down, but there's even a little bit of range to bring it inside the vertical line here, which lets her do cool stuff like cross her legs and put her feet together, which is really important for her character. And generally, something people can do. In fact, something people can do more easily than this. So I really like that this Cammy figure is able to do that. I wish Psylocke had the same, but unfortunately, nope. I don't know if it's the soft waist or just the way this channel is cut here. Does not go past the vertical, so that's about as close as you can get her feet together before they spring back. And one more thing about the hips, I think it's nice that they did insert a flesh-colored ball peg. That's a little bit better than if there was a blue joint in there. Psylocke has a thigh swivel that is nicely hidden at the top of her leg strap. However, it does start to dislocate the cross-section of her leg once you start using it, so I don't know if there's a better place to put it on the leg. I've seen some figures which have it similar design where they put the cut at the top of the boot. I'm not sure if that's like a slightly more circular cross-section, but that's basically what you want, is the most circular part of the leg. And This place is okay. It's not terrible, but as you can see, like if you're really working it, you're going to see a little bit of like clipping, I guess you could call it. Double hinged knees. Again, no pins, definitely a modern figure in that respect, so that's great. And the knees get pretty good range. Not quite as much range as the double hinge elbows, but it's about 90 plus another 45, so 135. And then ankles are swivel hinge joints. They go down like 90 degrees, which is awesome. They go up maybe 30 degrees, which is pretty good, and especially important since she doesn't have a toe joint. And then the rocker, again, just kind of too steep. So as a result, it's going to be a little bit harder to pose her in like wide stance, this type of pose, or something that requires like a wide stance with a flat foot on the ground. And that is it for Psylocke's articulation, head to toe. Overall, it's pretty good. I mean, it's like state of the art for Marvel Legends. They have like pretty much pulled one trick on Jada, which is including butterfly joints on female characters. So that's pretty cool. I really like butterfly joints. I think they're a cool innovation. I would like to see some of the Jada engineering, like the way they do their waists and the hips, spilling over into Hasbro a little bit more. They're also always sure to include some lower leg swivel. Here it's at the top of Cammie's boot, which is the perfect place for it. She also has 3 ball joints at the neck, so there's the double peg at the top and then another ball joint going into the body. And so she of course doesn't have the like very rigid long hair that Psylocke has. She has a better time looking up and things like that. I really don't think this joint is necessary. This seems to be kind of the standard that they're going forward with for super articulated female Marvel characters. Where this figure excels is the fun factor. And I think that's part of the story with Marvel Legends that gets left behind. A lot of the time, Hasbro is first and foremost a toy company. Yes, these are their highest end collectible figures, but they are also still toys at the end of the day. Their figures are definitely built to be played with, more so than something like Mafex. I think Figuarts finds a pretty nice balance between playability, but definitely a little bit more fiddly. Marvel Legends, it's straightforward, fun out of the box, and I think this Psylocke is an excellent example of that. The sculpt is pretty good. It's not quite as cohesive and fluid as something like Mafex, but still, I like that they leaned into the sort of brash femininity of this character design. It's a good figure. Is it a good product? For Hasbro, probably. For the consumer, definitely not. It's a quintessential Hasbro Hostage 2-pack. It's a retailer exclusive, released in a way that just seems to be bait for scalpers. And yeah, those little annoying things are another reason why I quit collecting Marvel Legends, but we'll see if they get on my nerves enough again. But for now, this has been the Art of Action Figures. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.